NACDL is the association of the nation's criminal defense bar.
So thank you so much for the introduction. I just wish my parents were allowed to hear it because, you know, my father would have really appreciated it and my mother would have believed it. So a woman's walking down the street and a man's walking the other direction. And she says, "My God, John, what happened? You used to be tall, now you're short. You used to be fat, now you're thin. You used to be strong and healthy, now you're weak and diseased. My God, John, what happened? You used to be so handsome. Now you're horribly disfigured. John, what happened? You used to have that beautiful long blonde hair. Now you're completely bald. John, what happened?" And the guy looks at her, he says, "My name is Tim." "And you changed your name too." So I've been giving speeches about jury selection and the strike for cause method of jury selection for, I think, maybe 20 years now. So I'm getting ready to go to my 40-year high school reunion this weekend. So you start recalibrating. Like I said, for years, I've said, "Oh, I've told that joke for 10 years." No, it's 20. So, and I give speeches, you know, somewhere to some different group, you know, probably, you know, once a month, you know. And I always tell that joke. And so I want to find out, because these are the people who will be able to answer this question. Are there any sociologists in the room? Would you please raise your hand? There's a sociologist, another sociologist. Any psychologists in the room? Any psychologists? Philosophers, or people who majored in philosophy before? Okay, well, I'm going to have to call on the sociologist. Why do I tell that joke and not some other joke? And what does that have to do with jury selection?
Because people believe what they want to believe.
Because people want to believe what they want to believe, right? And so what happens if you confront somebody with more facts in a more persuasive way?
If they are convicted about their belief system, they'll fight you on it. They'll deny the facts.
If they are convicted in their belief system, they will fight you on it. They will deny the facts, right? Did I get that word for word? But by the way, that's a great trick to learn in voir dire, is to be able to repeat back word for word something. Okay, so here's the thing. And everybody else that I've seen, you know, give speeches about jury selection so far has already done my job on this part of the speech. But I'm just going to do one last rant. Okay, is the nature of being human is to be biased and prejudiced and have no insight into the fact that you're biased and prejudiced. They've done studies where if you give somebody more information that's contrary to their view, what happens? They become more entrenched in their original position. In psychology, they call it what? Discrimination bias. What's another thing that they call it? There's a sociologist back there. What else do they call it? Cognitive dissonance reduction. Like if something doesn't fit, and we're going to talk about that, cognitive dissonance reduction tomorrow in witness preparation. If we had a psychologist here, they would call it confirmation bias. All right? In philosophy, what they say is there is phenomena out there, and then there is a filter through which the phenomena goes through, and you call that the truth. So I have my hand on something. What do I have my hand on? What do I have my hand on? Yeah, why do we call this a table? Oh, because it's a table. So you have no insight, see? Because we call that a table because it is socially constructed, okay? And all your sociologists tell us it's socially constructed. We're constructed, and through common language, we believe this is a table. But if you put that in among the San people of South Africa, it is not a table. It might be an altar, it might be a shelter, but they don't have the word table, they don't have the concept table. It's not a table, all right? And I see lawyers to this day on the other side of the courtroom trying to convince people of things during jury selection. And that is wasted time. And not only is it wasted time, it's counterproductive. So why is it counterproductive? Okay, go ahead and speak up. They're getting more set in their ways, but what does it do in terms of your ability to get strikes for cause? Go ahead. What I heard you say is you're wasting time. I couldn't hear the next part. You want to get them off the jury, and you're rehabilitating. That's the word you used, right? So you're inoculating them against your later questions. They're trying to get people off the jury. So here's one thing: is I write scripts for lawyers, and the only time the word fair is in any of my scripts is it fair to say? I don't say we're just here to get a fair jury, right? No, that's a lie. I mean, what kind of lawyer are you if you're just trying to get a fair jury? I want the lawyer who wants to win. Can I get that guy? No. So don't lie to the jury, okay? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a jury that is biased for us, right? And we don't get to pick our juries. It's a process of elimination. It's from front to back, the first 12 who are left, right? And so we have some ways to do that. You have some ways to do that by intelligently exercising your peremptory strikes. But the most important tool you have is maximizing strikes for cause. And so that's what this speech is going to be about. Primarily is about maximizing strikes for cause. And what I want to do is I want to try and give you some theoretical background, and then I'm going to go right into the mechanics of this, all right? Because I see speeches all the time that diagnose the problem, right? But, well, now what do I do? Yeah, so we're just screwed? Excuse me, I'm not supposed to swear, but... Okay. I'm being taped. Okay. So, you have two choices whenever you're standing up in front of a panel. And here are your choices. You can be trying to sell your case. You can say, our forefathers fought and died, and people are dying in Afghanistan right now for our rights to be presumed innocent, and the Fifth Amendment, and et cetera, right? You can try and do that. Blah, 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 okay? And we've all seen that. Or you can be trying to get people eliminated from cause. Make them leave the room, okay? And here are some examples. And one of the things I'm going to do is we're going to use Venn diagrams. So everything I do is based in logic. And so a Venn diagram is something that's used in math and it's used in logic to try to separate one thing from other and also to see where things overlap. So this is an example of a very complex Venn diagram. So in this Venn diagram, you have people who are both a toker and a picker, and that's Willie Nelson. And then you have Jack Nicholson, who's both a grinner and a lover. But then you have Steve Miller, who is a smoker, a toker, a picker, a grinner, a lover, a sinner, and a joker. And so I'm not going to have anything that complex today, okay? So the Colorado method, this is the main thing I get out of the Colorado method, is that there are all these people out there who already believe your client is guilty, right? And then there are people who strongly favor the death penalty, right? And so all the people in that set in mathematics, people who strongly favor the death penalty, already think your client's guilty, right? And so we want to get rid of them. And so that's the question. So the Colorado method, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you can do weekend seminars on this, but it's very useful information. But it's basically trying to categorize people from 1 to 7. And for the people in the back who can't read it, I'm going to read some of the text on here. We'll never vote, that's 1, we'll never vote for the death penalty, and it's vocal, adamant, and articulate about it. So that's Sister Preaching, right? And then 7, believe in an eye for an eye, life imprisonment is not an adequate sentence, and then you have everything in between. So a lawyer who's a friend of mine and who Michelle hates was a former prosecutor, and he tells the story that he was doing a death penalty voir dire, and he says, well, do you understand that if you're on this jury, you could be asked to essentially kill a man? That you could be asked to, go to Huntsville and put the needle on the guy's arm, and you're essentially hitting the switch to let the poison flow into his arm and kill him. Do you think you can do that? He says, well, if it's on a Tuesday, but it's about a day's drive. Okay, so that's your sevens, right? So, is that okay with this group? It's a tough joke. Okay, so you want to get rid of your 5, 6, and 7s, right? So just think about the logic of this. If the nature of being human is to be biased and prejudiced and have no insight into the fact that you have biases and prejudice, and I get rid of all the people who are biased and prejudiced against me, what does that leave? Can you say it louder? People who are biased and prejudiced for me, okay? It's not, you don't get a fair jury, okay? That doesn't exist. Fair is socially constructed. It doesn't exist in the real world. And so this is an example. There are two kinds of people out there in the world, right? There are people who believe police officers never lie. And you run into those, right? Those are on your jury. And so, ma'am, you're nodding your head. If you were to pick of those two categories, which circle are you in? You believe that police officers lie all the time, okay? Who here fits into the first category? Police officers never lie. Would you raise your hands? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, great. People who believe police officers lie all the time, would you please raise your hands? Okay, now I'm going to do something here. Everyone should raise your hand. Could everybody raise your hand right now? There we go. You want people to participate. Thank you. You don't want people to sit on their hands when they're doing voir dire, right? Even though it's uncomfortable. So the point of the exercise is not to cover every issue. The point of the exercise is to get rid of every bad juror. All right? So if you have a question that's working for you, or 3 questions that's working for you, or 4 questions that's working for you, and you're getting rid of them, you're making them find the exits and leave, don't worry how you got them out the door, okay? There are a lot of lawyers who say, oh, I got to cover burden of proof, and I got to cover, Fifth Amendment, and I have to cover this. No, you just want them out the door. I had a voir dire one time. Every so often I'll get hired. I don't mostly do this, but every so often she says I do plaintiff's work. Sometimes I get hired by the forces of darkness like banks and corporations. And one of those banks and corporations, it's actually a credit union, just likes to fly me in to just do the voir dire. So I fly in, I do the voir dire, and I leave, right? And the plaintiff's lawyer had spent his entire voir dire selling his case, right? About how terrible banks are, how we need to hold people accountable, how terrible it was for the poor widow. And I stood up and I said, who here feels sympathy for the plaintiff? Will you please raise your numbered cards? So we all raise your numbered cards? I always bring numbered cards, okay, like this. My cards go up to like 150. And I said, thank you for doing it, okay? And then we write down the cards. All these people raise their cards. And I said, Juror 23, tell me about that. Oh my gosh, when I talked about what happened, and she didn't have her money, she wasn't having heat for the winter. And I said, well, is it fair to say that sympathy is just going to play a role in your decision in the case? Oh, yes. And even if a judge instructed you otherwise, you just couldn't follow that instruction, could you? Oh, no, I couldn't. Who else is 23? I spent an hour and a half on sympathy. And the lawyer on the other side was freaking out, coming up to the stand and saying, Judge, he's burning the panel. And I said, no, I'm not going to burn the panel. I can count, And so the deal is if you have a question that's working for you to get rid of everybody that you need to get rid of them. But you want to have lots of questions because you don't know what's going to work. You want to have lots in your back pocket. Okay, so you can sell your case. This is an example. You can go, police officers are liars, and we read in the press all the time about how they're someone who was acquitted, because they found out later on But this guy in the thought bubble is thinking, nope, and the other one's thinking, I love cops, okay? The other choice is to get rid of them. And so how do we do that? This is an example of a question that accomplishes this goal, okay? I'm going to apologize that this is a lot of text for a slide. When you're preparing your slides, for trial, this is just a little tip. Don't do a lot of text. You want to have things that are visual. There's only one channel. It's the auditory channel. So whenever I'm talking and saying words, you're trying to read something, it's the same. So I'm going to shut up now and let y'all read the question. And then I'm going to do the question. Okay, now I'm going to do the question. People have strong feelings about law enforcement officers. There are some people who so respect and admire law enforcement officers, they simply wouldn't believe that a law enforcement officer would lie under oath. Now, there are other people that believe a law enforcement officer is just as likely as anyone else to lie under oath. So, sir, would you be willing to be a super conservative juror? Okay. So do you hear the question? Okay. So which of those best describes you? So what I hear you saying is you believe that police officers would never lie. Can you tell me more about that?
Their job is to catch bad people.
Okay.
They need to lie.
So here what I hear you saying is you believe that their job is to catch bad people. Is that right? So is it fair to say that regardless of the law, the facts, the judge's instructions, you would tend to give more credibility to the testimony of a police officer than someone who's not a police officer? Is that fair to say? And you would do that because they're a police officer, right? And I want to be clear with what my question is. I'm not talking about that they have superior training or experience or powers of observation. I'm talking about just whether or not they're a truth teller. Do you understand my question? And so even with that qualification, you just have to give more credibility testimony of a police officer than you would someone else. Is that fair to say? Regardless of what the judge's instructions or law were, right? Who agrees with this juror? Please raise your numbered cards. And so we'll go ahead and do that. Please raise your numbered cards. I see 1, 2, 3, 5, and 4. I know that you're really not that way. So okay, great. And she's doing my job, which my job is to primarily sit next to people and hand lawyers notes, right? And so juror number 1, you said that you agree with juror number 26 over here. Tell me about that.
I agree with them. I think that police have a duty to uphold the honest society. And so it's part of their duty to speak the truth under oath.
So what I hear you say is that you believe that police officers have a duty to uphold an honest society, right? Mm-hmm. And part of that would be to tell the truth under oath. And so as a result of that, you're just going to have to give them more credibility. Is that fair to say? Okay, thank you. And then you would go through each one. Tell me about that, tell me about that, tell me about that. Okay? And why do I want to do that? Why do I say, tell me about that?
You want to hear their words.
And why do I want to hear their words? That's right, but I don't. So that's part of it. But what's the other part of it? Why do I want something in their own words? There we go. Yes, when the state, for the people in the back, when the state tries to rehabilitate, you'll have their actual words that you can go back to them on. Okay, and so I come to court with a big artist's pad that I take notes on, and I recommend that everybody go out and buy one and have somebody take notes for you while you do voir dire. Because what I can do is, because I listen word for word, I write it down word for word, is at the end I can say, my notes say blah, 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 right? You believe that police officers, or your father was a sheriff's deputy, that they understand the consequences of perjury, that's just how you're raised. Are my notes accurate? Were you telling the truth when you said that? Now, I know that you would try and be fair. I know that you would try and follow the law. I know that you would try and follow the judge's instructions. But when it comes to this one issue, isn't it fair to say that that's simply something that you couldn't do? You're just going to have to give more credibility to testimony of a police officer than someone else, all other things being equal. Isn't that fair to say? Yes, it's fair to say. Okay? I gave a speech in California, and they were telling me, oh no, our judges out here in California are so mean, they would rehabilitate them. I go, I will put a Texas judge up against a California judge any day of the week. Okay? No offense, California people. Okay, because I love working in California. Okay, so tell me about that. So I have a question, what I call a strike for cause question. I say, tell me about that. And then we have the nail down question. Is it fair to say that regardless of the law, the facts, or the judge's instructions, you simply would have to give more credibility to police officer testimony than you would to testimony from a witness who is not a police officer? Is that fair to say? Now, what I will tell you is I don't say it like that. I didn't say it like that, did I? So is it fair to say that regardless of the law, the facts, or judge's instructions, that you would tend to give more credibility to a testimony from a police officer? Is that fair to say? Yeah, it's fair to say. Okay? What did the court reporter write down? The court reporter wrote down, regardless of the law, the facts, or the judge's instructions. Okay? So you have it nailed, nailed, nailed. And who agrees with this juror? Who agrees with that? That's the system in a nutshell. But we're going to talk about what the elements of it. So the first part of the question has different groups. Some people believe this, other people believe that. And why do you think that's important to have two different groups? And you don't have to be a sociologist to answer this question. Anybody on this side of the room? They're a part of a group. Yeah, they're not hanging out there by themselves, right? So some people believe one thing, other people believe the other thing. And then there's tell me about that. But let's come back to the first question. There's some other key words in there. Respect and admire law enforcement officers. Oh, wait, that's me, right? So somebody who doesn't have a bad experience, that's not my kids, that's for sure. My socialist kids would be the opposite of that, right? But somebody who is a bad juror for you, when they hear respect and admire law enforcement, they are going to say, well, that's me. That's the category I fit in, obviously. And then the other one's just as likely as anyone else to lie, right? Well, gosh, I can't raise my hand to that one. So the other thing about that question is that it is not a 1 through 10. That is 0 or 1. You're in this group or this group. Sheep, goats from the sheep, wheat from the chaff. You separate them out, okay? And so once you've separated them out, then you can dig in some more. And the other thing about that question is that it has legal significance. So there's two things you're trying to get. You're trying to get a yes, so you want the question constructed in such a way that it's easier to say yes, I can't be fair, I can't follow the law, I can't follow the judge's instructions, right? But you actually want it to mean something when they say yes. So one of the things that lawyers will say is they'll complain to me and they'll say, oh yeah, Robert, I tried to use your system, and I got up there and I winged it, but I was trying to get the structure cause, and I was there, and I had all these people who said it'd be difficult to believe a police officer would lie, or it'd be hard, or I like police officers, and the judge wouldn't give me my strike. Well, the judge should not have given you your strike because you didn't articulate the question in such a way that it was a strike for cause under the law. All right? So you want to write the questions very specifically. Tell me about that. So you have something in their own words. And then regardless of the law, the facts, or judge's instructions, you want to nail it down. So you want to, in Texas, you have to worry about having improper commitment questions. So in Texas, you can't say, in this case, would you do that, right? Because that's asking them to prejudge the evidence. And so in all your questions, you want to say, in any case in which blah, blah, blah happens, right? Not what you would do with this specific question. Okay, so I'm going to give you another example. Okay, so we heard a lot at the seminar about, how people are racist, right? And so one of the questions I pointed out in an earlier speech, they said, well, what do you do? It says, well, you can't say, would all the racists raise their hand? All the people who hate Mexicans, would you please raise your hand? And you include Central Americans in that too. Raise your hand. Get them up. Okay? Well, you don't get any hands on that. But here's what does work. People have strong feelings about testimony that comes from a translator in a situation where a witness does not speak English. There are some people who have no problem giving equal weight to testimony that had been translated as to testimony that was originally in English. There are other people who would tend to give less credibility to testimony that's translated from another language into English. Who here would tend to give less credibility to testimony that is translated from a different language? Raise your numbered cards. Okay? So there was somebody from I think San Francisco. There you are, right? And so in an earlier speech, you were talking about raising the issue of race, and then you lost all these great jurors, right? So you don't want to do that, right? So the point of the exercise is have your people be very, very quiet, like church mice, and sneak onto the jury, right? And you want their people, all of their people to be really loud and get rid of them, all right? And so you notice how that question ends right here. It says, who here would tend to give less credibility to testimony that's translated from a different language? Who am I asking to raise their hands? I'm asking for the racists to raise their hands. I'm not interested in interesting inquiry where we all talk about how people feel about race and all that. No, I'm trying to win, and the way I win is I get rid of those people. Okay? And so here's what. Tell me more about that. So is there somebody here who's willing to be I'm not going to say you're willing to be a racist, but somebody. Would you do it? The San Francisco person? What's your name? Julia. Okay, Julia. So you raised your hand. Tell me about that. But yeah, you have to be. I'm not calling on people who are good for me. Okay. We'll talk later on about if I make a mistake. Okay. And so tell me about that. Okay, so that's a very sophisticated answer. Okay, it's hard for you to get into the head of a racist. So you're just too good a person. Okay, person next to you. Go ahead.
How do I know that's what they're saying?
There we go. How do I know it? But do you know what I get? Do you know what I hear? Well, when someone's not speaking in English, that makes me think they're not here legally, and if they're not here legally, they're already a criminal. Okay? Who agrees with this juror? Please raise your numbered card. Okay? And who here would, because for whatever reason, right? Like we don't say because you're a racist, but for whatever reason. So is it fair to say that regardless of the law, the facts, the judge's instructions, you would tend to give less credibility to testimony that's translated than from testimony that was originally in English? Okay? That question's very effective. Who agrees with this juror? So, I don't know why I have a question there. Oh, here we go. So this is a question we've used in some cases. We've all heard phrases like Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, or Blue Lives Matter. Who here has reposted, commented, shared something to the effect, Blue Lives Matter? Please raise your numbered cards. Okay? Tell me about that. Who here, although they have not posted about Blue Lives Matter, share the sentiment behind those postings? How would those attitudes and opinions affect you if you were to be a juror in a case involving an allegation that someone had shot and injured a police officer? Okay? Is it fair to say I might be starting out behind with you? At a minimum, you have a bias on these issues, right? And by bias, I just mean strong feeling. So what did I not ask about? Who here has posted about Black Lives Matter, right? I only want to know about the Blue Lives Matter or the All Lives Matter. People have strong feelings about certain types of punishment in criminal cases. There are some people who might be able to consider life imprisonment as opposed to the death penalty on a murder case, regardless of who was killed. There are other people who, if they were on a jury, might be able to consider a life sentence in most cases, but would just have to impose the death penalty if the person who was killed was a police officer? Who here, if they were on a jury, would just have to impose the death penalty in a murder case involving the death of a police officer? Please raise your numbered cards. And you notice, I'm just asking those people, right? I'm just asking my bad people. Tell me about that. So is it fair to say that regardless of the law, the facts, the judge's instructions, you would automatically have to impose the death penalty in a murder case involving the death of a police officer? Is that fair to say? So I'm not doing conclusion. So now we're going to practice some, okay? And so do I have a volunteer from the audience? There we go.
Yay.
So I'm going to be a bad juror.
You want me to do the Fifth Amendment question?
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead. I'm going to be a bad juror.
People have strong feelings about the Fifth Amendment. There are some people who believe that if an individual doesn't testify in a case, it doesn't mean anything with regard to whether or not he is guilty. There are other people who believe that if someone were innocent, they would get on the stand and testify. Juror number 1, what are your feelings on that issue?
Oh gosh, I'd really, I don't know why, but I mean, if I were charged with something, I'd sure want to testify. So I don't understand if someone's not guilty, why they wouldn't get up there and do it.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. I mean, they're facing their life is on the line here, and you wouldn't testify. So I think I just have to consider that.
So is it fair to say, regardless of the law, the facts, or the judge's instructions, that that's how you feel and that's not going to change?
I just have to tell you, I think that's true. That I just have to do that. Go ahead and do Red-Faced Monkey.
Okay.
No, you can just do it like that.
No, I don't remember this one.
Oh,
I
I'm
haven't done
sorry.
this one in a long time.
I write scripts, and she's really good at this.
I haven't done one in a while. Let's
Okay.
see. When I was a child, my father would joke with me, and you know why I don't know this one? Because I don't use this one.
Oh, okay. Good.
I don't like this question. I'm sorry.
Use the one you want. Use white polar bear then.
I've never had white polar bear.
Okay, well, you just shove in the
Okay,
word white.
I'll do red-faced monkey.
Okay,
I've
go
heard
ahead.
you do it. When I was a child, my father would joke with me, and he would say, "Son or daughter, go stand in the corner and don't think about a red-faced monkey." So what do you think I did? That's right. I thought about a red-faced monkey. The reason I tell this story for some of you, is that some of the judge's instructions may be a red-faced monkey. You would do your best to try and follow the judge's instructions, but when it comes right down to it, you would have to consider whatever it was in your deliberations. So, juror number 2, is this a red-faced monkey for you?
Yes, this is. I think you're right. Okay.
Okay.
And so I want to talk a little bit more about that. Okay. So why did I do that? So you can do white polar bear. Somebody said blue elephant today. What does that do? What does that? You're instructed to do something, and people have different ones. A lawyer, he does a deal where he says, I was a single child of a single mother, and my mother promised me a collie puppy. One day you're going to get a collie puppy. And I ask every day, when's the collie puppy coming? When's the collie puppy coming? And at some point I said, listen, Mom. She said, listen, son, don't ask about the collie puppy again. If you even think about the collie puppy, then you're not going to get it. So what did he think about? Yeah, I got a job. One of the lawyers says, I got a job right out of law school, and I was washing windows on high rises. And they said, whatever you do, don't look down. So what did I do? I looked down. Now, the reason I tell this story is that for some of you, some of the judge's instructions will be just like that. They will be white polar bears. They will be don't look down. They'll be collie puppy, right? And so what that does is people walk around. Remember, they don't have insight into the fact that they don't. That they're biased, right? And just think about how ridiculous that is, that whole idea that somehow or another you're not biased or prejudiced, or if you are biased and prejudiced, somehow or another a judge's instruction is going to change how you look at that, right? I was talking with a sociologist today, and they said, so one of the studies that came out was that they realized there's this implicit bias, right? So they did a study where they instructed people that, hey, you may have implicit bias. We have it on good authority. You have implicit bias. And so we want you to look around and find out what your implicit bias is in making this decision. And what they found is that people would make up an implicit bias that they don't have to guard against in order to come up with their conclusion that they had before. Okay? And so the deal is that whenever you want to give people permission, and so people want to walk in and they want to look good to other people, right? They want to look good to other people, the community. They want to look good to the other people on the jury. And so the idea that somehow or another I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be able to admit I'm not a law-abiding citizen, you got to give them permission, right? But what this does is it shows them, hey, you're a human being. It displays the ridiculousness of that view. Okay, so anybody have any concerns about rehabilitation? That like the judges may come back and rehabilitate, or the prosecutors?
What do you do when the judge starts jumping in and isn't letting you ask your question?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the first answer is roll with it, okay? So you don't do what I do. And so I've had this happen where I've had a judge, and it doesn't happen that often, okay? But it does happen sometimes where a judge interrupted, and he says, "Now hold on here. Now what I want to let you to know is I want to be clear here. You're not saying that just because somebody comes in here with a gun and a badge and a uniform, you're automatically going to believe everything they say. You're not saying that, are you?" And the person says, "Oh, no, Judge, I'm not saying that." "Counselor, you may continue." I says, Thank you so much, Your Honor. So because I want to tell you that, the judge makes a really good point, because there are people like that. There are some people that are automatically going to believe everything that a police officer is going to say just because they have a gun and a badge. I'm clear that that's not you. But you are somebody who would tend to give more credibility, aren't you? Yes, I am somebody who would tend to give more credibility. Okay? Now here's the other question, though. And the one thing that I've been seeing some of that's just sort of killing me, and that is that some people, some of my stuff is filtering into the other side. And now I do have lines that I draw. The only time I've ever spoken to a group of prosecutors is I spoke to the entire Dallas County DA's office one time whenever a new DA came in, and he found a memo that said, "Strike black people, strike Hispanic people, strike fat people." And as a fat person, I was highly offended by that. And so I agreed to speak to the whole panel, and what I said is that if you're making decisions based on, like I'm going to tell you, don't do that, don't make decisions based on race, but because it's wrong, but that's not going to make any difference to you, okay? Because it's against the law, that's not going to make a difference to you, okay? Don't do it because it's stupid. If you're making decisions based on race, you did a really crappy voir dire. You didn't find out who the individual people who were out there listening to your case, right? So I've had it some filtering in some. And so I picked a jury in a case. So you do have to be geared up. And I would say, especially in death penalty cases, that you want to be geared up to be holding on to people too, to really try to figure out strategies. And I want to tell you that the truth is I'm working on that nut. I don't have that nut cracked as how to best hold on to your best jurors, okay? But I'm working on it, right? And I want everybody's idea about how to do that. But I had a case recently, a public corruption trial in Dallas, and the prosecutor goes up and he calls on juror number 2. Juror number 2, there's some people who could not find someone guilty just on circumstantial evidence alone. So how do you feel about that? Oh gosh, circumstantial evidence, a felony and federal case? I don't know. I just don't think I could do that. Juror number 6, could you convict somebody only on circumstantial evidence alone? And he says, oh no, I don't think I could do that. And then juror number 8, and then juror number 24. He does this for a while. Then he gets to juror 24, and juror 24 says, everyone can see what you're doing. And he says, I don't know what you're talking about. You're calling on black women. Everyone here can see what you're doing. My client, by the way, was African-American county commissioner. And he says, well, I'm sorry you think that, but that's not what I'm doing. And then calls on juror 30, you can be fair. White juror, juror 31, you can be fair. And then juror 36, African-American, could you use circumstantial evidence? Oh, circumstantial evidence alone, I don't know if I could do that. And then at this point, the judge steps in. And the judge says, well, listen, the best way I understand about circumstantial evidence is that there's a snowy field and there's no footprints when you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next morning and there are footprints in the snow. Does that help? He says, oh, I don't know, but I don't think I could do circumstantial evidence alone. John Miley Price, really? And so then they keep going, right? And then I stand up and I'm doing strike for cause, strike for cause, strike for cause. I get called down by the judge because I'm very aggressive. And what's the point of the exercise? What am I trying to do? I'm trying to do what? Win? Right. Whatever, you have to define win in different cases, right? So am I trying to make the judge happy? I don't want to get thrown in jail, but my job is to try to win, right? And so I get called down. But then for the last 5 minutes of the voir dire, I went to juror number 2. Now, juror number 2, I'm going to change the judge's analogy just a little bit. Suppose there was a footprint, and in that footprint was a drop of blood, or actually a pool of blood, and somebody took a large sample of that blood and sent it off to a lab, and they got a DNA test, and the DNA test said that with 1,000,000 times certainty, it's this person. Could you rely on that? Oh, absolutely. DNA? Absolutely. Well, that's circumstantial evidence. And so the reason that I bring that up is that there's good circumstantial evidence and bad circumstantial evidence. So if you had good circumstantial evidence, you could convict someone. Absolutely. Juror 6, Juror 12, Juror 24, Juror 36. And that jerk pulled each one of them back in to try to rehabilitate them. And then afterwards, didn't use all of his strikes because he would run into a Batson problem to try to not get deep in. But 24 made it on as an alternate and made it on the jury, and we got it not guilty. Okay, and there are other reasons. Our guy wasn't guilty too, there was that, right? But I guess the point of that story is you want to think about creative ways to engage and rehabilitate. You want to fight for every person that you can hold on to, because that's the whole game. Like, it's really pretty much over in a lot of ways, after you get there. So you want to keep your people. So I sort of want to start from the beginning too. So whenever you first get a case, the first thing you want to do is you want to identify what your hot button issues are. And so what's an example? What do I mean by a hot button issue? In the back there. What do I mean by hot button issues? Issues that elicit an emotional response. Okay, so that is a very good answer, because here's the thing: the way human beings make decisions is that they decide based on how they feel about something, and then they go back and justify it. And if anybody has any question about that, then you come watch one of my focus groups, right? And watch people dig into their positions and how they reference their personal lives and their emotions and things that have nothing to do with the facts of the case. Okay? So the fact of the matter is if you put somebody in a functional MRI and watch what's going on in their brain during a decision, is blood is flowing into the limbic system at the moment a decision's being made, and then blood flows into the cortex. So they make the decision, then after they make the decision, They justify the decision that's already been made. So at the very opening end of the case, you need to identify what are the hot button issues, right? And the hot button issues are going to be different things in different places. So somebody give me some examples of hot button issues. We already talked a lot about police officers. Okay, I'm going to tell one police officer story though. So I've had a couple of these where has anybody had a dynamic entry raid where the cops kick down the door and throw concussion grenades and then they're surprised that one of them got shot? Like just, like, it's like, I hate to be bad about this, but like we're in Texas, people have guns, right? Like, so I had one of those, and like the agreed facts were that my client had shot and killed a police officer. Okay, so that is sad, but it was and so I had this person in my imagination. The person's sitting there in her uniform. I know that can't be true, but the way she sat there, it was like she was in her uniform. She must have well been, right? And I used everything I got. Well, would you tend to give more credibility to the police officer? Nope. There's some police officers lie, some tell the truth. Well, you know what this case is about, right? What would that be like for you to go back to work if you acquitted him? Wouldn't that be uncomfortable for you? Nope. Wouldn't bother me at all. I have real concerns about you being on this jury. What do you think about my concerns that you would be, that like day 2, day 3, day 4, that some of these things that you start hearing facts about the case and the widow, do you think that at that point it might start to affect you? Because once you're on the jury, it is too late. So we need to know now. And she says, nope, wouldn't bother me at all. I don't have any concern about that at all. I think your concerns are unfounded. And I said, okay, well, I just got a little housekeeping I've got to do. Do you know these witnesses? Yeah, I know those 4 officers. Well, how do you know the first one? Well, I rode with him when I was a rookie. What kind of person is he? He's a good person. Is he honest? Oh, yeah, he's honest. He's not a liar? No, he's not a liar. Are you telling me he's not a liar? Yes, he's not a liar. There's nothing I could do to convince you that he's going to come in here and lie under oath. No! So, thank you. Okay? So you have to figure out different angles and keep working it. But the first thing you have to do is you have to identify what are your hot button issues, right? Which are the emotional issues. So what are some emotional issues that may or may not have something to do with your case that people have in this room? I'm sorry, what? Child victim. Okay. So how would you write a question on that? Some people.
Some people have strong feelings about people doing bad things to children.
Yes.
And some people would have difficulty being on a jury.
You're almost there. Some people have strong feelings about certain types of cases. There are some people who could consider life imprisonment if the victim had been an adult or in some situations involving adults. But they just simply could not consider life in a situation in which a child had been killed. Who here does that describe? Okay? Okay, who else has another issue, a hot button issue? I want us to learn together how to do this. Okay, who has a hot button issue? Yes? Foreign national defendant. Okay. Well, so they're probably going to have translated testimony. What nationality? Mexican. I think your translation question is going to be there. Are they here legally? Okay. Is it going to be an evidence that they're here legally? Okay. Well, so here's the thing. Is this is one of these deals where you have to sort of decide, okay, do I want to keep something out, or can I use it, right? And because that can be a real good lever. People have heard a lot of things about immigration and the immigration debate, and there are some people who feel that immigration is resulting in increased crime and creates danger for people in America. There are other people who feel that those concerns are overblown or that immigrants are no more likely than anyone else to commit crimes. Who here fits in the first category, that feel that immigrants are more likely to commit crimes? Please raise your numbered cards. Wow, this is fun. I just wrote that one right now. There are some people who would have to consider a person's upbringing and sort of basically what their life was like in determining what an appropriate sentence was. There are other people who feel that that really should have no bearing, that the only thing that's important is what was the crime that was committed, and that and really just absolutely almost offended to consider that type of stuff. Okay, so that wasn't as smooth as I'd like it, but you get the idea, right? So who has yes?
Well, I have a question. It's about the question I asked earlier, where my colleague had really wanted to raise the issue of look at all these African-American defendants, look around the room.
Yes.
He just wanted to bring that to the forefront, and and it kind of backfired.
Yes.
Because we got rid of, resulted in reference to those people, but
Yes.
how would that be phrased? If that was phrased in a category question.
Yes.
Somebody find it to be a problem that the only African Americans were defendants.
Right.
I mean, is that a category question?
So you're raising such a good point. Okay, and so we have the script, right? And what I do is I'll write a first draft, and then I send it to the lawyer, and then it's just, and it has written in bold up at the top, first draft, right? And then we collaborate. And partly why I look so smart is I've worked with people like that who are really hard on me, right? No, I don't like that, Robert, right? And then we'll change it, okay? But the way we go through the script is every word that's in there, we say, what is the intention behind the communication, okay? So what am I trying to accomplish with this question, okay? That's the first question. Then the second question you ask is that what I should be trying to do, right? And then the third question is, does it accomplish that goal? Okay? So let's think about that question. What are you trying to do with that question? What's the intention behind the question?
My question is, I think he was trying to just bring out the issues that the police are finding.
Okay, got it. And
Bring it to the forefront, how people consider it. It's a very, racist issue.
Yes.
And all that. So,
yes.
make up, I think he's trying to raise the issue. I think really, in that situation, given the pool is what it is,
Yes.
I think the only thing you want to do is maybe just bring it to people's attention.
Yes.
They have to consider this, and also it's like a gang case. It's really a gang, and it doesn't just black people hanging out.
Yes.
It's a relevant topic.
So it's a relevant topic, but that particular question, if you had to pick between these two categories, which I do a lot of, okay, I'm Venn diagrams, like this or that, right? And see, I'll tell you, it really helps to get clarity about this. Because, oh, by the way, voir dire is not complex. This is really simple, okay? It's not easy. It's really hard to do, okay? But it's not complex. You're trying to get rid of people so that you can win and hold on to everybody else. So if you were to say, which of those two things are you trying to do? Is he trying to sell or is he trying to cut? He is trying to sell, right? And what he accomplished doing is getting rid of. I mean, I don't want to be critical because he didn't see the speech, right? And so the thing is, but you do have like an important issue there, and that is gangs, right? People have strong feelings about groups of young men who get together. And then there are some people who consider those, these in Latin American community and in the black community, very dangerous organizations and gangs are a threat to the community. There are other people who really consider those are just a label that's put on people. that are our friends hanging out and some of whom commit crimes. Who here fits in the gang category? Okay? Don't ask about the other people. You want them to be quiet. But the reason I actually caught you in the hall, and thank you so much for raising your hand, because I would have forgotten this, and this is like a really important point, is that ever so often I make a mistake. Okay, even a monkey falls out of a tree, right? And so, because I'll get an information sheet, and then whenever I'm getting the information sheet, I'm scoring somebody, and there's there's a scoring system that they use. Let's get back here. In death penalty cases, hold on here, which is the 1 to 7, right? We'll get there. There. Yeah, there's the 1 to 7, right? So there's that scoring system, but there's another scoring system that I'm putting people into 4 categories on any kind of case. Leader positive, so it's an L plus, leader negative, follower positive, follower negative, okay? And so when I first get my sheets, my information sheets, I'm putting them in those 4 categories. You notice I put it at the bottom, leader negative, leader positive, and I'm making a decision, first of all, are they a leader? And the way I make a decision as to whether or not they're a leader, at the beginning you have to stereotype, right? Like, after voir dire, you better not be stereotyping, but at the beginning you have to stereotype to get ideas. And so if somebody is a leader in life, they tend to be a leader back in the jury room. So if someone has a lot of education, has a CEO, or a professor, then they're a leader. And then you look, are they for me or are they against me? Well, if they're a sociologist or a social worker, they may be for you, right? If they're ex-military, colonel, engineer, stay-at-home wife, Church of Christ, you might want to put a leader negative next to them, okay? And so I use that scoring as to who I call on initially, okay? So you're talking about stealth jurors, right? Well, if somebody's out there and they're not raising their card on anything, and they fit the category that I just said, you're going to start calling on them, okay? Or you're going to have somebody handing you a Post-it note. By the way, never do any of this by yourself. I don't care if it's a DWI. Have someone take notes for you so you can just be present with people, all right? So here's what will happen, is I will pick someone that I'm going to call on for a question. People have strong feelings about the burden of proof in certain types of cases. There are some people who have no problem applying beyond a reasonable doubt in a serious criminal case. There are other people, if they felt like something had been proven by clear and convincing evidence, that just have to go ahead and find the person guilty. Who here fits in that category, all right? And then I call on somebody, and the guy says, hey, listen, I know I look conservative, and that's how I used to be, but then I was wrongly accused of something. And I was drugged through the system. I'll never get that money or my life back because of that. And so I am very critical of the state. So what did I do? I made a mistake, right? I exposed the person who's a great juror for me. And so what I want to say is shut up. Shut up, stop talking, right? But I don't do that. I just listen politely till they're finished talking, okay? And then what do I say? I say, who has a different opinion? Please raise your numbered cards, okay? So on every person, you've got 2 different directions you're going. Either you're getting the strike for cause, and then you say, who agrees with this juror? Please raise your numbered cards, right? Or you don't get the strike for cause because the person turns out to be somebody good for you or somebody you just can't nail it down. Sometimes that's the case too. And then you say, who has a different opinion? So what does that do when I say who has a different opinion? What does that do? Gets me back on track. Gets me back on track. Because remember, the point of the exercise is to get rid of all the bad people, to kill all the rats. Okay? And here's a matter where the language really makes a difference. So, and I know this for a fact, is that I say, who has a different opinion? I don't say who disagrees. If you say who disagrees, no cards go up because people don't want to disagree with other people. And the reason I know this is true is I used to have that question laminated. I'd hand it to the lawyer. I had a very, very capable ex-U.S. attorney lawyer on a big civil case say, who disagrees? I hand him the card again with a Post-it note saying, read the card exactly as it's written.
Hey, Robert,
yes.
We're running out of time.
Oh, I'm out. Okay. What's so?
Okay.
I have 5 minutes. Okay. No. You're a great moderator, right? And so they have 5 minutes. I could sing. That's an option. Or somebody could tell me, how can I best serve you? Does anybody have something where you think? I mean, I can talk about this stuff forever. You know, she heard the 3-hour presentation. Go ahead.
Are you ever able to get the lady off who says she can't sit in judgment?
Oh,
Keep her wrong.
yeah. I don't know how you do that. You know, I mean, because at the end of the day, you can't sit in judgment another. Usually there are only two or three Jehovah's Witnesses, and then every so often I'll have a Baptist, and I would want to say to him, hey, listen, I went to Baylor. I know that's not true. They'll judge people all the time. Yes, go ahead.
Look on this one with me.
Oh, there we go. I'm so sorry. So then I put it. So followers are people who don't have as much power in life, right? Less education, a lot of times younger. Although you have to be careful about millennials because they're super educated, you know, and they speak up, right? But people in general. And so I have a leader, follower, and I say, are they for me? Are they against me? And then I don't know if you get to shuffle wherever you're at, but we can do something called a shuffle in Texas. And that means you can mix it up. And if I have more leaders against me in the first half than leaders who are against me in the second half, then I do a shuffle, okay, to try to hope that it gets better. If it's about even, I don't shuffle. And then I use those designations to make sure that I call on important people. And then when I'm doing my peremptory strikes, we strike leaders first. Yes? I hand something to the judge saying, Judge, we're asking for a shuffle. And the judge shuffles them all up. And so you have a different order. So the order is very important, you know. I had a $17 million verdict one time. The only thing that really happened is that the shuffle broke my way. So, yes, you had your hand up? Somebody had their hand up back here. Yes?
Any thoughts on what you do with certain issues that don't keep you more dire, like the West Michigan, Texas?
Okay, so he's asked about places like federal courts where they don't give you voir dire. Okay, so these fall into different categories. These fall into categories where judges say, you don't get any voir dire, right? So that's one category. And I don't know what you do with that. Okay, there are categories where the judges say, I will allow you to submit written questions that I will read. Okay? And then they throw those away. Okay? And then there are federal judges. I mean, that's Judge Sparks, and then you have Judge Yackel, who will read your questions the way you write them. And you should be writing these questions impeccably anyway. You have to write the questions a little bit differently, right? But, I mean, man, that's half the battle with me is to get the lawyers to read the questions the way they're written. Okay? And if I have a judge who will do that, then it's almost as good. And then they'll let you follow up. And then the other thing is always in those situations, ask for a written questionnaire. You know, say, Judge, you know, I have to know something about this, and see, let me do a supplemental written questionnaire, and put the three famous people you most admire, three famous people you least admire. Put the authoritarian scale on there. Does everybody know what the authoritarian scale is? So our sociologist is, you know, she's getting all these kudos today. Authoritarian scale is a question where it says, in raising children, which is more important? Can you help me? No, it's well-behaved or self-expressed or thoughtful or disciplined. Yeah, and so you can score somebody really quickly from a 0 to a 4 as to how authoritarian they are. So here's the final thing I'll say is as long as you head in the right direction, you're going to do better than a lot of lawyers. And so as long as everybody's clear in that direction. But if you start to drift and start to think that somehow or another I'm going to do something to persuade somebody, then you're going to be lost. And here's my final proof of that, is that people keep saying, it's like, wow, Trump's numbers are so low. It's like 36, 36 is like the lowest like in history. And so the question is like does everybody not realize that is millions and millions of people? And some of you, it's going to be the majority of your panels, right? And so the question is what would it take to change their mind? You would have to shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. It still wouldn't make a difference, okay? So use your time to get rid of those people. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be in front of you.